necessary to defend the State of Israel and the people of Israel.
Well, joining me live now is Dan Arbel, a scholar in residence at the Center for Israeli Studies at the American University in Washington. He's also a former Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of Israel in Washington, D.C. Welcome to you, Dan. Thank you for taking the time this evening. I just want to ask, as you've been watching this unfold this evening, what do you think Israel's strategic aim is here? Yes, of course, on one hand, clearly to retaliate, but what message do you believe they are looking to send?
Yes, thank you. So, the October 1st attack by Iran came from Iranian soil. Missiles, drones fired at Israel, entering Israeli airspace and hitting targets inside Israel, both civilian and military. And so Israel, from the outset, was keen on responding and retaliating in the exact same measure, hitting Iran on Iranian soil. And therefore, the targets that Israel selected very carefully are focusing on military targets throughout Iran and making the point that Israel will respond to any attack on its sovereignty. Second, also restoring its deterrence, which was very much eroded in the aftermath of October 7th and in recent months. So all that to show and to project to the region that Israel will not just sit idly by while attacked. I think that's first and foremost. It's been coordinated with the United States, although the United States is not participating. The White House was given a heads up. And so we're seeing a second wave of attacks happening just now. And I do believe that, by morning hours, Tehran time, this would probably be over. And then we anticipate we'll be watching to see what Iran will do, whether Iran will respond or whether it will feel this suffices and it won't feel a need to respond. So we will wait and see. But at this point, I think Israel is making that point clear that it's not going to sit and wait to be attacked without responding.
There have been some analysts who have asked the question as to whether Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, at a time when he has been embattled, is looking to draw a line in the sand on this, or perhaps have a larger confrontation with Iran. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, as you've noted, Israel is facing a seven-front war stretching from Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, Gaza, and the West Bank. And so there are many fronts involved, and Iran is masterminding a lot of the attacks on Israel, coming from Lebanon, coming from Syria, coming from Iraq, coming from Yemen. So clearly, Iran is the source of most of the attacks that are happening now against Israel. And Israel is trying to make a point and to address the source that's behind most of these attacks. In terms of Netanyahu wanting to widen the conflict with Iran, I don't think that's the case. I think it's wanting to make a point that it addresses and it responds to the strike by Iran on October 1st, but I don't think Israel wants to widen the confrontation with Iran. It's also very hard militarily to engage with Iran, which is 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers away. There's no common border. You can only reach it through aerial strikes or missile strikes. It's not something that I think that Israel wants to take on Iran fully in a full war mode. I think these strikes that are happening as we speak are enough from Israel's point of view, hoping that Iran would get the message and not respond. But again, if Iran does respond, then Israel will probably feel the need to retaliate as well. And then we enter a sort of a cycle of attacks and counterattacks. But to your question, I don't think Israel is looking to widen the conflict with Iran.
And what about what Israelis want in terms of that response, in terms of the cycle that we are seeing developing here? Because, of course, yes, on one hand, there is the question of retaliation in the name of defense. On the other hand, one could ask the question whether they want some kind of calibrated response, knowing that they too could be vulnerable when yes, there is the Iron Dome, but we've also seen some missiles managing to penetrate that.
I think you're right to suggest. I don't think Israelis want something that is more than a calibrated response. I think that there's fatigue in Israel. The country has been at war for more than a year now, at all these multiple fronts. Certainly, its army is being stretched out to the south, to the north, and in other arenas. So certainly, I don't think that there's a desire by Israelis to see their country go deeper into war. And I think that a calibrated response tonight will satisfy, I think, most of Israeli public opinion.
Do you feel that Israelis feel sufficiently supported by their ally, the strongest ally, the United States, at a time when there has been an increasingly tricky relationship between Netanyahu and Biden?
Well, it depends which Israelis you ask. And I think that clearly there have been tensions between the Israeli government, the Netanyahu government, and the Biden administration. But that does not mean that all Israelis are distrusting of the Biden administration. I think many Israelis are very appreciative and they feel very secure and safe when they know that the Biden administration is supporting, is arming, is backing, it's the war effort. It's something that we'll see how this unfolds in the coming weeks. But of course, Israelis are mindful of the U.S. elections that are around the corner, and we'll have to see where that goes. And of course, it's no secret that Israeli public opinion's pointed to the fact that they prefer Donald Trump to win over Kamala Harris. But that does not mean, again, that there's no appreciation. On the contrary, I think that Israelis feel much safer knowing that the U.S. is backing them and is helping in the effort.
Dan Arbel, a scholar in residence at the Center for Israeli Studies at the American University in Washington, D.C., also former Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of Israel in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Have a good night.